The expensive tinted SUV easily drove out of the Werkstoria the village with the romantic name of Romashka and swiftly picked up speed towards the city. Noah sat in the passenger seat and admired the surroundings. Suddenly, his gaze was attracted by a figure lying awkwardly on the narrow bench of the bus stop. There were no cars of people nearby, so Noah ordered the driver Jacob, "Look, the man is not well, stop. We gotta help him." "Noah, I can't stop," Jacob said, trying to be convincing. "What if it's a setup?" "It can't be." "Look, there's no one here." "Stop. I'm telling you, she needs help." "Then don't say I didn't warn you to stop." The driver did stop the car, backed up. "You sit down, I'll see for myself." With these words, Jacob got out. Noah followed him. "I don't mind," he replied to the driver's reproachful look. They approached and saw a frail, small-sized girl. Death had a pale face, sweat droplets on her forehead. The stranger moaned quietly from behind her chicken eyes, tears streaming out. "Girl, what's wrong with you?" Noah leaned toward her. She was sculling with difficulty. Write down all the lips and whispered without opening her eyes. "My stomach hurts a lot. My stomach. Help me, please." "Jacob, get her in the car now." "Shouldn't we call an ambulance?" "Can you be late for the negotiations?" "To hell with negotiating. A man is dying here." "Let's go to the regional hospital." The car sped into town. Noah called the secretary and asked her to reschedule all the appointments until lunchtime. Then he called the head doctor so he wouldn't waste a second. "We got a girl in the car, don't know anything about her. Picked her up at a bus stop, complaining of abdominal pain. We're bringing her to you. Take her in." A few minutes later, they pulled up in front of the emergency room. They were already waiting. The girl was put on a stretcher. "Hold on, girl." Noah encouraged her, squeezing her thin hand in his palm. "Tell me, what's your name?" "Cindy." "Ah, my name is Cindy." With an effort, the girl whispered and fainted. "Ta!" Noah got into the car and ordered to the office. After listening to the secretary's report, he gave the necessary order and asked for a cup of coffee. "Your coffee, Noah." Evelyn smiled affably at her boss. "I don't have any for anyone. Half an hour." "Okay, Noah. Any other orders?" "Not yet. Are you free?" When the door closed behind the secretary, Noah sat comfortably in the big leather armchair with a cup of coffee, remembering the morning's incident. Cindy's pale face came clearly to mind. Pretty, he thought. Young. He shifted his gaze to the photo that stood on the table. "How were you and I, my dear, when we were married?"
He turned to the woman in the photo. They were young, full of energy specialists with higher education, dreamed of opening their own business, and they were doing well. They were making plans. "Charles, I love you so much,"
Wendy whispered in his ear, tickling his cheek with a white, airy veil. A raucous wedding. Happy parents and cheerful guests paint the bride's face. Slightly embarrassed, but so happy. And Lenotchka, you are incredibly beautiful. Not a life in bed the morning after the wedding. I've known you for 100 years. I just saw it now. I'm not making this up. It's only been 10 years since you moved into our house. Wendy wagged her finger at her husband. And I picked you.
He kissed her cheeks, her lips, her eyes, tried to tuck the unruly flower of spotted blonde hair behind her ear. But it would pop out again. Spring, and they laughed adoringly, looking at each other. "Noah, are we going to have a baby?" Watching the husband's reaction, the young wife informed one day. Noah looked at her in amazement, not fully understanding what she said. "What baby? Our child? What does that make it? I'm going to be a father soon." "Yes." "Yay!" Noah shouted with delight. Picked up Wendy, spun around, and suddenly stopped. Gently placed her on the floor. "Are you really happy?" The young woman looked questioningly at her husband. Kissing his wife very tenderly, he muttered, "When the son James was born," Wendy devoted herself to his upbringing. And Noah worked so that his beloved did not need anything. In the evenings, after tucking their son in, they would sit quietly on the sofa in their apartment, cuddled together, enjoying the quiet family happiness. We'll build us a house," Noah dreamed. "It will be a big house." "Why do we need a big house?" Wendy laughed. "It's just the three of us. I really want us to have a little girl." "Cradling his wife," the young man said, "as beautiful as her mother, with the same wavy hair and naughty flower." He jokingly twisted a curl on his finger and pulled it down. The curl bounced back into place. "I'm going to play with her like that." So much tenderness. Devotion. Desire was in his eyes that Wendy cried with overflowing feelings for her husband. Noah actually built a house in the village of Romashka, not far from the city. Fresh air, a garden, a river. There was everything to enjoy life. 3 years later, Wendy announced that she was expecting a child again. It would be a girl. Noah was ready to carry his wife in his arms. The joy of the appearance of a baby girl overshadowed the fact that the woman had a difficult pregnancy. "My dear doctor strongly recommends that I go to the hospital," Wendy once said. "That's good. You'll be monitored?" "Don't worry," Noah encouraged his wife. But there was anxiety in his soul. He believed it would be all right, because medicine was so medical now, there was nothing to worry about. He put Wendy close to the ward, arranged with the head doctor, came to see her every day, supported her as best he could, telling stories, reminiscing with her about funny incidents from their lives. That terrible morning, Noah was in a hurry to go to work, to solve all the issues and go to the hospital. The labor was about to start any day now when the call came. "Noah, hello, come right away." "Your wife has given birth. She's in critical condition in the intensive care unit. Unfortunately, the doctor shocked him. Pregnancy provoked heart problems. Apparently, she had a history of heart problems before, but she didn't pay attention to them. The heavy course of the pregnancy had aggravated the process. Therefore, the labor was difficult." After a silence, he added, "Of course, we are doing our best, but you must understand that we are human beings, not gods." Noah listened to the doctor and refused to believe that his wife was in real danger. "But you have to help her. She can't die." "What about the baby?" The doctor paused sympathetically and added, "I can't promise you anything. Once again, we do our best, but there are times when nothing depends on us. I'll pay any money." "How much?" "Sometimes money doesn't help." The doctor sighed sadly. "You didn't tell me what happened to the baby. We couldn't save her. I'm sorry." Noah looked at the doctor's removed back and realized that he was leaving and taking away his dream of a big family. He was afraid to enter his wife's room, afraid she would read everything on his face. He finally made up his mind. "My girl." Noah stroked his wife's hair, took her hot hand, pressed it to his lips, and kept looking, without looking away, into the sad, extinguished eyes of his beloved. He was ready to give everything if she would only live. "Noah, give us our girl. Take her home." But I was told he was afraid to say out loud what the doctor had told him. "Don't trust anyone." I heard her cry. Wendy's voice was breaking. She was choking. You could tell she was eating, laboring to get every word out. She squeezed the length of his hand. "Now, what are you going to find her?" "She's alive, I know. I can feel it. She's a part of my blood and yours." "Sworn?" the woman repeated insistently. "Yes," Noah said with effort. "I swear to find our daughter." A grateful smile touched Wendy's aggrieved lips. A tear rolled down her cheek. She closed her eyes and fell silent. Noah fell on his wife's body, embracing, clutched in his hands, the edge of the sheet she was covered with. The woman clamped her fist over her mouth and forgot how a wounded animal howls. Intense. Terrifying. Huh? Doctors, nurses rushed into the room. They tore him away from his wife, told him something, took him out of the room, put him on a bench, gave him a sedative. He did not remember how long he sat there, depressed by the grief that had fallen on him. Struggled to come to my senses, so got up and went to the head doctor. "Tell me, when can I pick up my daughter?" The doctor looked at him perplexed. "I told you the girl was dead. Her mother's illness prevented her from developing properly. I offer my sincere condolences. But there's nothing more I can do. I don't believe it. The wife said she heard the girl crying after she was born. Oh my God, Noah!" The doctor came out from behind his desk and put his arm around his shoulders and led him insistently to the door. "Huh? Was your wife in such a state that she couldn't hear anything? That's what happens when a woman refuses to believe a child is dead. You go home," he urged him. "Get some sleep, get some rest. You have a wife to bury. Don't disturb your soul. I want to see the midwife who delivered the baby. What's her name? Lisa. She's a resident. I'll have the secretary escort you out, but I assure you, she'll confirm my words." Noah had a long talk with Lisa, confirmed only that the girl was dead. There was nothing that they could do. Then he decided to find the woman who shared a room with Wendy, but it turned out she'd already been discharged. They wouldn't give him an address. He still managed to persuade a young nurse to tell him where the former roommate lived. The woman met him warmly. "I'm very sorry for your grief. Wendy was a very nice woman. We even managed to become a bit of friends. But I don't know the details of the birth. When they took her away, I was in labor too. I never saw her again. Then they told me she was dead." The woman shut down, and so did the girl. That's when the crying came from the nursery. "I'm sorry. The woman was in a hurry. I have to see the baby." "Yes, I'm sorry." Noah left upset. He tried to hire a private detective, but he didn't find any trace either. The last piece of evidence had been severed. He had no proof of his daughter's life, his wife's passing. Noah took it hard. He went to the old apartment where their life together had begun. He didn't want to return to a house where laughter would never again be heard. His favorite son sent him back to his parents. He didn't answer the phone, didn't show up for work. Life had lost its meaning for him. All day long, he lay on the couch, drank, and in moments of enlightenment, he went over and over, looking at pictures of his wife, not wanting to come to terms with the loss. A month passed in a drunken frenzy. One day, the doorbell rang. The intruder was very insistent, and Noah had to get up to see who dared to so unceremoniously violate his solitude. Caught on the doorstep with a bottle of brandy, swaying, stared unfriendly at the man. With difficulty, he recognized his business partner,
Mason. "What are you doing here?" "Noah, hello," said the visitor patiently. "Permission to enter. Come in," Noah allowed. "Noah, I sympathize very much with your grief, but you have obligations to me, and they cannot be put aside.
This is business. Think about the fact that you've got a son to raise if you've given up on yourself. I think Wendy would be saddened by your present unenviable position." "Don't touch Wendy!" Noah glared threateningly at Mason. "She left her son, ignoring Noah," the man continued, hoping he would be all right. "And you abandoned the baby? Didn't show up for work? I'm sorry." He turned to the owner of the apartment. "What are you going to live on?" "None of your business," declared rudely Noah. "Father of anyone from the bottle. I'll sort it out myself." Yeah, you'll figure it out. In the meantime, the competitors have been busy. Profitable projects have sailed away from us, because I can't sign documents without your participation. I let you wallow in your grief for a month, but I'm here to tell you to stop feeling sorry for yourself. You've ruined both the business and the baby. I'm not even talking about you. I can't go back now, Noah said with a tremor in his voice. You can and you must, for the sake of your son, for the sake of your wife's memory. The guest stood up. I'll leave now, and you have 3 days to gather your thoughts. Then I'll wait in the office. Your son needs you. I need you, the people who work for you. Life, unfortunately, goes on. Let's accept that fact and stop drinking. Noah. He heard the door slam, and the silence receded again. He looked at the picture of his wife. I wish I could die with you, but I remember I promised to find our daughter. I'm sorry. The next day, Noah returned to work. Outwardly, he was the same as before. Only between the eyebrows lay a deep wrinkle, and the temples covered with gray hair. Relatives sincerely sympathized with the grief, tried to comfort and support as best they could. But the man withdrew, did not discuss what had happened with anyone. He even began to joke again. Only his eyes always remained sad, to drown out the pain and loss. He went into business, raised his son. 20 years flew by. Noah was brought out of a deep reverie by his secretary. Is Mason asking for you? Yes, thank you. Have the insurance company come in. A sad memory, he instructed. Noah! The guest opened his arms towards his friend. Hello, darling. The investors are rushing the contract. I'm sorry. It's urgent. Mason, hello. We have a meeting with them at 0400 hours. Oh, that's great. What about Evelyn? He went to the receptionist. Make us some coffee. I heard you launched a whole rescue operation this morning. The visitor laughed. They say you saved a very young girl. What's wrong with her? I don't know yet. The doctor promised to call. When they find out everything, I'll have to go and see her. What's gray in the head? What's a gray hair? What are you talking about now? Noah frowned. She's a kid. She's old enough to be my daughter. Besides, you know I don't like women. Yeah. He looked at Wendy's picture thoughtfully. Mason, how many years has it been? 20. I haven't found anyone. There's no moon. I don't need another one. You know, I tried for my son. I tried to find a good woman. But you can't be lucky twice. He looked at the photo too, and he couldn't look away. You know, if it wasn't for James, I'd have followed her out too. Believe it or not, I wanted to end it all at once, but at some point, it was like I heard her Charles. Live for 2, raise your son, that's all. Realized you need to stop too, friend. Thank you. Took a look at Mason. What shook me up back then? Yeah, it was my own mercantile interests. He laughed embarrassedly. I didn't want to start from scratch with another partner. We with you only started to explore new horizons. They were both silent. By the way, when James comes back, he has 2 more years of school. That's okay. Then he'll go straight into the firm's water business, so he'll still come to us for an internship. The phone rang. Noah, came Lena's pleasant voice. Do you have a call from the hospital? Noah, he heard the head doctor's voice. The girl is fine. Thank you for delivering the flagman appendicitis in time. It would have been a little longer, and we couldn't have saved her. The surgery was a success. She's doing great. When can I visit her? Tomorrow's fine, I guess. Thank you. I won't be in debt. Oh, you didn't mess with her for nothing. Mason laughed again. I took it very personally. You can't imagine how small and thin and helpless she was there on the bench. I mean, they could have missed her or driven by earlier, and nobody else helped. How long was she there? Calm down. It's all right. All right, buddy, I'm done talking to Mason. I gotta go. You take care of our investors. We could use another lucrative contract. Shaking his friend's hand, he left the office. Noah worked until late in the evening. His thoughts sometimes returned to the stranger. He couldn't get rid of them and understood perfectly well why he was thinking about her. This girl stirred the deepest depths of his memory. And there was still a hope for happiness, which would be possible. Had he found his daughter, as he had promised his wife? Hi. Smiling, Noah said cheerfully, entering Cindy's room. How are you? Hello. Embarrassed by her helpless state and trying to tuck an unruly strand of curly hair behind her ear, the girl replied and tried to rise. Stay down. The doctor forbade you even to move while Noah came closer. Halt and answer. I noticed the gesture with which the girl was fixing her hair and caught himself that it was painfully familiar to him. Here's the fruit. He put a weighty bag on the nightstand. And these are flowers to cheer you up. Only I don't even have a vase here. We'll figure it out. He looked out into the corridor and called the nurse. A nurse appeared and quickly brought a vase for the bouquet of flowers. Cindy smiled. Well, let's get acquainted. My name is Noah, and I'm Cindy. I remember. Thank you so much for not leaving it there at the bus stop. The doctor said if it wasn't for you, I might have died. Well, the doctor overstated our merits. How did you end up alone in such a deserted place? I went to the cemetery to visit my parents. Noah frowned. What happened to them? They died 2 years ago. Any other relatives? No, there's no one else. A friend of my father's is handling my affairs. I don't know anything about it yet. Tell me more. How I ended up on the bench. I got on the bus. I felt sick. I asked him to stop. The driver dropped me off and he drove off. Yeah, that's a situation. Do you remember the driver? Can you recognize him? No, I was in a fog at the time. I couldn't think straight. I remember someone helped me off the bus and put me on a bench. And that was it. And then you stopped. The important thing is that everything was all right. Cindy, after a little silence, asked Noah, What do you do? I'm a student. I'm 2 years away from graduation. I'm going to be a lawyer. I also have a son graduating in 2 years. Unfortunately, he looked at his watch. I've got things to do. I have to run. Here's my card. If you need help again, call me. Promise? I promise, the girl replied sadly, looking at him with cornflower blue eyes full of gratitude. Wow, eyes like my daughter's, I thought to the man. Call. Noah turned from the doorway and Cindy nodded. She liked this man very much. He had a certain reliability and calmness about him. She had already decided for herself that she wouldn't call. Why bother a man who had already given her a second birth? All the more so because he had a son, which meant he had a wife. Cindy knew firsthand the devastating consequences of a rude invasion of one's privacy. Still fresh were the memories of her parents, who on the eve of their death had had a big fight over her father's young secretary. How could you do this to me? Mom cried. And the father stood depressed and kept saying I had nothing to do with her. Why don't you believe me? Did she call you on purpose to get back at me for turning her down? Of course. I am already old. You want young people not listening, wailed woman. Aren't you ashamed to look your daughter in the eye? Mom, Cindy intervened. Why don't you want to believe the man you've lived with for so many years? Do you? Bullshit. If the girls could just stay out of it. Her mother yanked her out. We'll figure it out. Honey, let's stop fighting. They're waiting for us at Seleznev's appointment. Get cleaned up and then we'll go. It's not proper to be late. And off they went. Cindy remembered her mother's eyes red with tears. Upset. Afraid. But the trip was not postponed. And then, just before morning, she got a phone call. Your parents died in a car accident? Just a few words, and a girl's life changed forever. Of course, her parents left her some savings, a small percentage of shares in her father's company, but she was an orphan, and no money could not replace the warmth of her parents. "Oh, that I have completely revealed," thought the girl, wiping away the tears caused by memories. "It's okay. I'll soon get out of the hospital and forget this incident as a terrible dream." She talked herself into it. "Well, my dear, we've fixed your health one morning," the doctor said. "We can discharge you. He's not coming back to us." "I don't think Noah will be around next time," he joked. Cindy went home. Life went on as usual. 2 years passed. Cindy received her diploma and came to apply for a job. The firm, run by a friend of her father's, was thriving. Cindy had never had trouble with money. "Hello, Sebastian." With a smile, she entered the office that her father used to occupy. The girl greeted the new owner. "Here before you is a certified specialist." She happily took her diploma out of her purse and waved it. "Oh, I want to work for you. To carry on my father's work? Hello, Cindy." Sebastian didn't greet Sebastian in a friendly manner. "I didn't want to tell you while you were studying, but my father had debts. I had to sell all the shares so that you could finish university in peace." The smile slipped off the girl's face. "But I didn't sign any documents to sell the shares." Cindy looked at him in confusion. "I did sign because the contract you and I made authorized me to sign." He looked at her glumly with a frown. "You still have the apartment and some money left in the account. That should be enough to get you by for a while." "All right, but I want to work in a firm that once belonged to my father too. At least put me on probation." "I'm sorry, I've done everything I can for you." There's no job for you here. This firm is mine now." "But how did this happen?" "Dad said the business was doing well. Where did the debts come from?" Sebastian laughed out loud. His face was wobbling. His second chin was in chaos. "My girl, you think nothing of business, and let's end this conversation." The man stood up, leaning on the table. His waterlogged eyes turned into snapping ones. He angrily declared, "I have fulfilled my promise. You have been educated. The stock has passed to me in gratitude for my trouble. Your services are not needed, and I ask you to leave my office." "I take it you just robbed me," covering yourself with concern for the future, looking fearlessly at him. "And inflaming him with the look of your cornflower eyes?" Cindy asked. "Sweetheart, everything I promised has been fulfilled. But the hiring isn't done." "Should I call security?" he said threateningly. "I'll leave on my own." "You know, Daddy loved you very much. He trusted you completely. That's why I put you in charge of my business. But he didn't know what a scoundrel you were. You can't make me feel better, can you? Go away." Cindy closed the door behind her and cried. She was counting on a job at her father's firm, so she had already turned down several lucrative offers. "That's all right. I'll call and offer my services," she reassured herself. Alas, time was already running out. She dialed number after number and was rejected everywhere. "Young lady, we can't hire you. You have no experience. Our company has been on the market for a long time. We don't want to risk our reputation." "But how can I get experience?" she asked in despair. "If you don't want to accept me, I'm sorry, it's not our problem." Cindy spent 2 months looking for a job. Money was running out. The girl held on with all her might when she realized that she couldn't cope with the problem on her own. She decided to call Noah. "Where are you?" "Looking for a business card," muttered Anna. "Where did I put you so safely?" "Yay!" And she let out a shout of joy, retrieving the business card from the desk drawer. Jokingly kissing it, spun around the room. "Okay, let's consider that." "I've accepted your helping hand," she mentally addressed the man. And then dialed a number, rolling around. And when I heard a familiar voice in the receiver, suddenly became shy. Ah, ah, ah. I couldn't say a word at once. I'm listening. Who did you say it was? Noah demanded. Hello, it's Cindy. Remember when you picked me up at the bus stop? Evelyn, of course I remember everything. I'm very happy to hear how you are. Where are you? The girl, happy to receive such a warm welcome, relaxed and spoke. Noah, I got my diploma, but nobody wants to hire me. It so happened that my father's firm went to his partner, and I was left with nothing.
I get it, he interrupted her. I suggest we meet and discuss. He named a time and place. Noah burst into Mason's office. Can you believe she called me? He shouted.
Who, without taking their eyes off the computer, asked Mason. Cindy, do you remember, friend? You had Cindy, Masha, Dasha. I can't remember all of them. Noah turned his friend's chair toward him, taking a break from the monitor for at least a minute. Cindy, the girl we saved. Remember 2 years ago? Mason looked at him carefully. I thought you'd forgotten about her, just like she'd forgotten about you. I haven't. She needs my help again. She's at the bus stop again. Don't laugh. I want to hire her as a secretary. Mason raised his eyebrows in surprise. You have a secretary? Why do you need another one? Okay, not a secretary. I'll give her, for example, the job of promoting our products. She'll be our creative manager, which, by the way, is a very trendy profession right now. But, Mason tried to object. I'm not arguing. We have opportunities. After all, you could deduct her salary from mine, Noah said with a chuckle. I wonder how you envision that, partner. Mason laughed. That's a good one. I'm meeting her at the cafe in Shado 200. I hope she accepts the offer, and I'll introduce you to her tomorrow. And let me ask you why you're taking such an active role in the life of a total stranger. I don't understand it all yet, Noah said thoughtfully, but I think she reminds me of Wendy. Noah, stop beating yourself up. It's been over 20 years. Yes, but I haven't met another woman worthy of me. It's a girl. He's rubbing the crease between his eyebrows. I'm attracted to her. If you're attracted to her, as you say, why haven't you called her once in 2 years and berated yourself for it every day? You believe that? I believe it. All right, don't bother me at work. Go date your Cindy. Mason went back to work, and Noah went back to his office, mentally picturing the meeting with the girl. She was a little late, walked into the cafe, and saw him right away. Noah sat in suspense, afraid she wouldn't show up. He looked nervously at his watch, and when he saw it, he was happy. He stepped up, inviting me to the table. I'm sorry, Noah, Cindy said, embarrassed. I'm late. That's all right. I'm really glad you called me. Tell me what went wrong. They sat for an hour discussing Cindy's future job. She was dreaming. There was a genuine interest in her eyes. Noah admired her, noticing his gaze. The girl shyly tilted her head, an unruly strand of hair dislodged from her hairstyle. She tried to tuck it behind her ear, but it still wouldn't budge. Her slender fingers trembled as she tucked the lock into her hair. Noah, it's getting colder. The same way his wife always fixed hair as curly as Cindy's. No, it's just a trick, he told himself. You'll only frighten the girl. We've got to calm down. It's a deal then. I'll see you at the firm tomorrow. The address is on your business card. I'll leave my pass at the gate. Try not to be late.
I'm a strict boss, he smiled, encouraging her. In the morning, Cindy, in a strict business suit with carefully styled unruly curls, entered Noah's office. Hello, I'm ready to get to work. Great. Stepping broadly towards her, the man said, Evelyn will show you the office. In the meantime, I'd like you to meet my partner.
They entered Mason's office together. Mason, may I introduce our new creative manager? Noah quietly nudged her into a tall marriage that the girl immediately liked. This is Cindy, and this is my partner and friend. We'll be working together. Mason scrutinized the cute, a little pale with embarrassment face of the new employee. Young and defenseless. I can see why Noah cares for her so much. Let's see why you're here, he thought, trying to be very polite and friendly. Cindy, in her naivete, had no idea what suspicions had crept into the soul of this pleasant man. And he, based on his life experience, distrusted her, thinking that she was a common predator, hiding under a mask of modesty. He did not share his friend's enthusiasm about the girl. He wanted to first check how she managed to nurse Noah's wounded soul, where he rarely let strangers in, so he still did not marry, keeping loyalty to his dead wife. Welcome to our enterprise, Mason replied discreetly to the greeting. Noah laughed. Cindy? In fact, you won't meet a kinder and more cheerful man. He's the one who put on the mask of a strict boss on purpose. Let's go, he turned to the girl. I'll put you in charge of Evelyn, my secretary. She'll bring you up to speed. When he returned to Mason's office a few minutes later, the man asked, What do you think of my ward? We'll see, he replied evasively. Didn't you like her? Noah looked at his friend in surprise. Let's just say I don't trust her. I suspect her of something. I need to understand why she called you. I told you, I needed a job after 2 years. Exactly. She didn't call until 2 years later. If she was up to something, she'd have come to me right away instead of waiting so long. Yeah, Mason said thoughtfully again. Still, I'll have to check it out first. By the way, his deep brown eyes flashed with excitement. You're not in love, are you? Shame on you, Noah said reproachfully. I told you, I'm just helping her. The girl has seen so much grief in her short life. She's a volunteer. When your son comes to visit, I forget all about him. Noah looked guiltily at his friend and said, He'll be here tomorrow. The youngsters are stepping on their heels, Mason remarked. Well, I'll get busy. Noah went out, and Mason dialed the number of a private detective. Kevin, I got an assignment for you. Meet me in 0200 hours at our cafe. See you then. And hung up. At 0200, he was sitting at a table and talking to an older, but very perky man. He was whipping sweet from his belt, head with a handkerchief with his left hand, and writing down information about the client with his right hand. Hey, when should I bring the report? Kevin asked in a businesslike manner. The sooner the better. If you find anything suspicious, let me know right away. Coming home from work in the evening, Noah found his son at home? James, why didn't you tell me you'd arrived? I was expecting you tomorrow, the father exclaimed, happy for his son, and hugged him tightly. Hi, Daddy. It was a long flight, so I thought I'd take a break. I didn't want to keep you from your work. I see my son has noticed. Nothing's changed at home. What should have changed? Undressing, asked the father. What if you decided to get married, for example? Would you be the first to know? And it's late for me. I've prepared a dinner. Let's celebrate my return. They sat across the table from each other, talking, laughing, making plans. You've grown up, Noah said, looking at his son. Correct features, tanned face too. Cornflower eyes like his mother's, but of a darker shade, framed by thick lashes, a soft curve of eyebrows, a straight thin nose, light wavy hair, strong arms, and beneath his t-shirt, his muscles were warming. Handsome, he thought with pride. He didn't marry behind his father's back. What do you mean? The young man laughed. I'll get married when I meet such a woman as my mother was, so that once and for all, understandably. I'm ready to start work tomorrow. I thought I would rest a little. He looked questioningly at his father. I'll give you a couple days, and then I'll wait. It's time for you to take over the reins of the firm. They sat for a while and then went to their rooms. 2 days later, James was up and running. He was a savvy, small father. Mason marveled, praised him, rejoicing in his successes. Noah, I've prepared materials for advertising our products. Take a look. Cindy came into the office. Noah and the clip at the same time. Looked at her one surprised with curiosity, the other warmly and welcomingly. Cindy, may I introduce my son? James, he turned to the young man. This is Cindy, our creative manager. It's a pleasure, James greeted him discreetly, shaking his outstretched hand. Cindy looked him carefully, straight in the eye. Hello, it's a pleasure to meet you too. She handed over the papers and walked out. Dad, where is she from? Who? The father looked at his son without understanding. He had a strong conviction that the girl reminded him of someone. Cindy is a good specialist, kind, honest and just, graduated. How long has she been with you? She's on probation? She's on, but we're happy with her. Talented, with imagination. James looked carefully at his father, who was immediately amused. He looked even younger with the appearance of the girl. A suspicion suddenly struck him. Dad, are you having an affair with her? Are you kidding? Noah was indignant. She's younger than you. How could you think of such a thing? I don't like her. I'm not forcing you to marry her. She's a great professional and a good person. You'll realize that when you get to know her better. Let's close the subject, Father said abruptly. Hello again, said the young man, entering Cindy's office. Tell me, beautiful child, what is your relationship with my father? Cindy looked at him uncomprehendingly. All right, let me get this straight. You've decided to marry him to yourself? What makes you think that? Don't be so hard on yourself. I can smell your kind a mile away. It's bad luck for you to be so young to have a negative take on women, Cindy grinned. I'm not being ironic. If you have your sights set on my father, back off right away, the young man said rudely. It's not for you to decide who to be with. Don't interfere. I have work to do, Cindy said firmly.
I'm not saying goodbye. James left the office. He got the girl's address from HR and picked her up after work in the evening. Walked her home, went to the nearest store, bought champagne, candy, flowers, and went to visit.
The call surprised the girl. She was not expecting anyone. James amazedly asked Cindy, "How did you find me, and what are you doing here?" Foolishly, he bowed his head and replied, "I came to beg forgiveness for this morning's rudeness." "Are you posting?" "No, I don't know you well, and I don't receive men in my apartment. Why do you prefer a hotel?" "So the neighbors don't know what kind of girl you are? Have you come to insult me?" "No, sorry, I couldn't resist." "You're very pretty when you visit the house. You shouldn't attract the neighbors after all. I told you not to host anyone." The girl tried to close the door, but James managed to put his foot in the gap. "I really acted like a fool this morning. But you have to understand, I'm coming back from overseas. Dad has a new young and pretty employee he can't keep his eyes off. What was I supposed to think? I can see what you should think. It's not your strongest trait. Are you laughing again? Not unfit? Let's talk. We can do it tomorrow at work. What about flowers and champagne? Give them to your girlfriend. I don't have a girlfriend. Do you want to be? No, I don't like you." James was distracted. Cindy took advantage of the moment and pushed him out onto the landing. Quickly slammed the door shut. He rang the bell a few more times. Then the girl heard the neighbor's indignant voice and a promise to call the police. Finally, everything quieted down. The next day, James turned to his father's friend, Uncle Mason. "What do you know about Cindy? How did she get a job with us?" "But I only know about her from what your father told me. Mason told a rescue story, and 2 years later she showed up again and asked for a job." I don't know anything else. Didn't want to tell you what was waiting for the detective's report. Decided to look into it myself first, then tell James. Strange all this. What made you suspicious? The man asked. You see, I saw the way her father was looking at her. James paced nervously around the office. He'd blossomed when she'd walked in on him. But that's just because she's pretty. That's what worries me, the young man said thoughtfully. I'm afraid my father might lose his head for her. And you don't mean that, do you? Mason hesitated. And then he thought, I think so too. Noah's still loyal to your mother, but after all, he's a man, and he could fall in love with someone else. It's been years. You never had a stepmother, and I'm very grateful to him for that. But I don't want her to break his heart now. He won't get over it. How can someone so young be in love? She's 3 years younger than me. I checked. Let's not get too excited just yet. And nothing's happened yet. By the way, why don't you try hitting her yourself? Maybe it'll take her mind off her father. Yeah, I tried that yesterday. She chased me away. She chased me away. Mason laughed. You, so handsome. I can't believe it. You've lost your ability to generalize about girls. What about your status as a catcher if she's got her sights set on her father? Why would she want me? The man agreed reasonably. All right, go to work. We'll keep an eye on the situation and keep it under control. He escorted the upset woman out while he dialed the detective's number. Hello, Kevin. What's on your mind? You were going to call me already? I'll meet you at our cafe after work. Reports ready? So, what information did you get? Mason asked, sitting at a table with a cup of coffee. A curious life this girl has. Her parents didn't have children for a long time. Mother's had 5 miscarriages. Last time she was in the hospital with your partner's wife. Sleepily, Mason exclaimed in amazement. Exactly. And even in the same room. Surprisingly, her labor was successful this time, and Wendy lost the baby. As far as I know, Noah refused to give up her daughter's body. Mason nodded in agreement. A suspicious coincidence, don't you think? You think the girl could have been taken from her dying mother? Like she doesn't care anymore. It's just speculation, and there's no corroboration. Everyone who could have been involved in a possible child swap and shed light on this story has either left the clinic, how much has passed, or refuses to discuss the subject. The rest of her biography, on the other hand, is not disbelieving. In some insinuations was not seen. Quiet, modest. University graduated with a red diploma. By the way, a friend of her father really fraudulently took possession of the shares of the company, which the girl inherited by will. If you want, we can solve this issue in favor of the heiress. Let us wait for the time being, pondering over what we have heard, Mason muttered. And it is never too late to return to the matter. I'll ask you not to say anything to Noah. Let's not give him false hopes. If you say so, Mason handed the detective a weighty envelope with money and went home. Hi. James sat down in his chair, appraising, scrutinizing Cindy. Had dinner with me tonight. Cindy glimpsed a glimpse of the unabandoned guest. I'm sorry, I have other plans. You don't have any plans. You don't even have a man. Were you interested? Of course. I need to know who works next to my father. Anyway, I won't have dinner with you. Why don't I like you? James leaned across the table. Their faces were very close together now. He heard her catch her breath, saw the excitement in her eyes, and watched her fidget with the fact that he was too close trying to tuck her naughty behind her ear. With a twist, the young man twisted a strand onto his finger and pulled it down. Cindy wrinkled her nose. It hurts. James let go of the strand, and it sprang back into place. The boy was suddenly reminded of a picture from 20 years ago. He had also played with his mother's hair. The vision was so vivid, it made him uncomfortable. He spilled out and hiding his inner excitement, swaggered and said, "Are older men interested in you? I don't know what you mean." Inside, Cindy sat fear and indignation at the young man's behavior. "Look, you're interfering with my work. Leave me alone and find yourself another object of attention." "All right, I'm leaving." With those words, he stood up, but the conversation wasn't over. James left. Cindy cried. She liked her job, she didn't want to lose it, but the harassment of the boss's son frightened her. In the evening, when she returned home, she found a bouquet of flowers put out by the doorknob, and in it a note. "Not giving up hope for dinner. Jesus, why is he picking on me? How do I explain to a man that I don't like him?" Cindy was very upset. She couldn't complain to Noah. She knew she couldn't charge him with anything. "He'll laugh at me," she sighed. Well, there would be food for thought in the day. In the morning, Cindy went to work with a heavy heart. She was inexperienced in love affairs and didn't know how to properly rebuff a man who insisted on intimacy. James watched her everywhere in the office, in the hallway, outside the office, at home, making lewd innuendos. One evening, she was late running an errand for Noah, already dressed, when she reached for the doorknob. Then the door opened and a young man appeared on the doorstep. Without a second thought, he scooped her up, pushed her against the wall, and kissed her. "We're alone at last. I can't wait any longer. Come on, answer me, baby." Heike left, he whispered, trying to get his hands under her skirt. Cindy pulled out of the embrace, turning her face away so her lips wouldn't meet. She was hurt and scared, but James was stronger. Then she pushed at him with all her might. He let go of her out of surprise. The girl took advantage of the confusion and jumped out of the office. Days went by. James still did not give her a pass, gave her flowers, sent her notes with declarations of love. Cindy held firmly to her defenses. She didn't tell anyone about her problem. One day, Cindy heard Noah's voice on the phone. "I've decided to have you and James negotiate a new contract." "Why me?" the girl asked fearfully. "Because James is not yet sufficiently knowledgeable in this matter." "Have you had any experience of working with clients?" Get ready to prepare the documents and go straight to the meeting." He hung up the phone. Everything went cold inside the girl. She realized that she couldn't refuse. But the prospect of being alone with James frightened her. She already had everything ready. The boss had given her an hour to get ready. When James walked into the office, "Ready?" he asked in a businesslike manner. "Yeah, we're good to go." They got into the car. Cindy couldn't relax from the tension, holding the file in front of her like a shield. Hey, James glanced at her from time to time. The silence dragged on. "Are you afraid of me?" the young man asked. "No, but I don't know what to expect from you," and he laughed. "Don't be afraid. I won't jump you in the car. I'll need you for more negotiations, won't I?" "I'm not afraid." "What makes you think that?" the girl said bravely. "I've known you for almost a month now, but I can't figure you out." "Are you really all right, or are you just making an impression with a long shot to get my father, James?" she said reproachfully. "Do you realize what you're saying?" "You've just insulted me. I mean it. Is your father a loner? A lonely loner? Have you lost your head? He's quiet. Are you sleeping with him? Look, we're in for a tough negotiation. And you're giving me a jealousy scene? By what right?" "I didn't give you any reason to think that way about me." The girl was indignant. "That's just it. I don't understand. What kind of game are you playing?" "I'm not playing a game. I just work. And I like what I do. And you're always getting in the way." They're pulling up to the client's office. Let's get back to this conversation after the negotiations are over. James turned off the car, turned to Cindy, gently ran his hand over her cheek. The girl twitched, getting rid of the intrusive gesture. "They're waiting for us," she reminded him. "The negotiations went well." The partners praised Cindy, but James held a grudge. At the signing buffet, he remained silent the whole time. Cindy, seeing that the young man was already drunk enough and looking at her with poorly concealed lust, hurried home, fearing a scandal. After a while, the young man followed. He rang the doorbell. No one opened it. Then he started beating the drum. "Open up. I know you're home." "Cindy, baby, what will the neighbors say?" Cindy didn't know what to do. She was ashamed of the neighbors. She was afraid of him being drunk. She heard someone's door open. "Young man, stop knocking. I'll call the police." "I like to fool her," James said in forbidding language. "She doesn't want to see me. Help." "You are young yourself. Do you know how hard it is
To have your heart broken, deal with it yourself. With an irritated wave of her hand, the neighbor left. "Cindy, open up." He started knocking again. Finally, the girl couldn't stand it any longer and opened the door. "Go away. I won't let you in. We won't let you in."
Then I'll go in myself." He swung the door open sharply, plowed Cindy aside, and entered the apartment. She, wrapped in her robe, remained in the hallway. The young man looked around the apartment hostessly. A cozy nest for lovemaking. "How many men have been here?" he asked, turning to Cindy. Then he grabbed her and carried her into the bedroom. He dropped her on the bed and began to tear off her clothes. "But hold me, darling. We'll have a good time. I know how to give a woman pleasure. Look at me. You've been with other men. Am I worse than them? Come on. I know you want me, don't you?" he said, panting with excitement. "Just once. And I won't come near you again unless you want me to." Cindy tried as hard as she could to throw him off her, beat him with her fists, battered him, tried to break free from his strong embrace, turned away from his hot breath. But he was stronger. James kissed her face, showed her earlobe, changed her breasts, positioning himself more and more strongly. With helplessness, the girl cried out and stopped resisting. He loosened his grip, lifted himself up on his arms, and saw the tears. He was struck by the helplessness, the hopelessness in her eyes. He saw something in her eyes that suddenly reflected him. The young man rolled over onto his back. Cindy quickly jumped up, wiping away her tears, sobbing, adjusted her clothes. Cindy looked closer, shooting up her hair. "What's wrong with me?" asked James, barely catching his breath. "Why do you keep saying no to me? You don't understand. You explain it to me. I'm a lefty. I don't want one time in a hurry, like inexperienced schoolboys. I want it to be loving and consensual." You see, Cindy remained silent. "I've never had a man," she continued quietly, "because I don't want to give myself away to casual liaisons. That's the way I was brought up." James, without a word, got up, grabbed his things, and left. Cindy cried all night, and in the morning she came to work, wrote her resignation letter, and opened Noah's office door with a heavy heart. "Noah, I want to quit." She put a statement on the table. "Cindy, good morning. What's up?" He pulled back a chair, sat her down, sat beside her. "Tell me." "It's about James." Her lips trembled. She interrupted nervously. "The purse strap? Our restaurant's purse strap is giving me a hard time. I can't take it anymore. He's tempting me to cohabitate. But it's against my rules, you know?" And Cindy told what had happened to her yesterday. She was afraid to raise her eyes to the man, so she didn't see the gum on his tables. Her hands involuntarily clenched into a fist, and her knuckles shared. "I really like the job, but I don't want to cause trouble for anyone." The girl looked up, her gaze fixed on the photograph that lay on his desk. "Who is that?" she asked in a whisper. Noah looked away. My wife and roommate in this maternity ward. Zenaida, I think." And sadly added, This is her last photo. She died 20 years ago. I loved her very much, so I didn't marry again. Today is the anniversary. I got it out. I must have raised my son wrong if he can't respect a woman's feelings. He saw Cindy's face suddenly win, but he chalked it up to worrying about James. Huh. That's why he was in a hurry. Don't you go, I'll take care of it. I'll have a man-to-man talk and explain. He won't bother you anymore. Do you believe me? He asked, looking into her eyes. I'll be able to put him in his place. Cindy nodded in confusion, stood up and went to her office. It can't bear, she whispered. Closing the doors, she pressed her back against it, unable to take a single step. It can't be. She said it again. Sat down at the table, dropped her head on her hands, and cried. Bitterly, desperately. Noah Swing's sixth step walked down the corridor in front of his son's office, stopped, gathering his courage, and decisively opened the door. I need to talk to you. Dad, without taking a break from his work, asked son, Let's do it later. I'm preparing the documents. You said it was urgent. It's urgent for me too. This is a man's life we're talking about. Yeah! Are you going to despise another orphan? Raising an eyebrow mockingly, he asked. Look at him. Hearing the angry tone in his father's voice, James turned around. I never punished you. I tried to raise you with love and understanding. But I guess that wasn't enough if you didn't learn the most important thing, to respect a woman. Daddy, have you eaten too much bleach? Explain what you want from me. Noah swung out of the way and slapped James in the face. This is for Cindy. If you come near her again, I'll throw you out of the firm and leave you penniless. Understand? So the little bitch complained to you. Rubbing a reddened cheek? Asked James. And you believed her? She was the one who kept bugging me. Realized it wasn't going to work out with you. So she switched to me. Now she's getting revenge. Noah looked at his son carefully and said regretfully, I could expect everything from you, but I could not have imagined that you would turn out to be a scoundrel even in my worst dream. I guess I was wrong. You're ready to give up your own son over the sake of some prodigal girl, James shouted after his father. The man once again looked at him with regret and left the office. Left alone, the young man flung all the papers on the floor, giving an outlet for his anger. So, she decided to fight with my father. James turned to the invisible Cindy, clenching his fists angrily. No way! I got rid of you my own way. Frustrated, depressed. Noah shut himself in his room. He sat looking at his wife's picture for a long time. If only you were alive. This wouldn't have happened. I did everything for him. He never let me down. He was a good son. Where did he get this intemperance when I could trace it back to him? I can't kick that girl out. She's become very dear to me. I think I love her like a daughter. I could not fulfill my promise and find our girl. But I can take care of Cindy, for she is all alone. There are only things to go through. Persistent knock on the door interrupted my musings. Noah, open up! It was Mason's voice. What's wrong? Noah asked his friend. I want to ask you what's wrong. Evelyn came running in worried, saying Noah came in after talking to his son, not himself. Shut up and talking to someone. I was talking to Wendy. It's our anniversary. How long have you been doing that? Talking to the moon. As soon as I get upset. Son was a scoundrel, girls, harassing Cindy. Noah didn't say a word. I hit him. Can you believe it? First time in my life, all because of a girl. I take care of her like a daughter, and he was thinking up all sorts of things, and the girl gave herself to him. Did the man look at Mason? No, she came to me with a statement. Did you? I didn't sign it. I promised I'd deal with my son. Good for you for standing up to it. That must have been hard. Mason, what are you talking about? He almost raped her. She came to me for help, not to file a police report. She figured she'd rather lose her job than mine. She's dragging me to court. That's noble. So what's going on now? Nothing, everything will be the same as before. I've forbidden my son to go near her. At home, Cindy feverishly went through the entire closet, looking for a box in which she had seen a photograph similar to the one on Noah's desk. It can't be. For the umpteenth time, she repeated, looking at the women standing next to her. On the back, read the inscription, "Cindy, this is your birth mom." There was also an envelope, and in it a letter she had read more than once. "Cindy, I'm very sorry to you. I don't know if you'll ever read it or understand. I couldn't have a baby for a very long time. I had one miscarriage after another. I was afraid your father would leave me, and I loved him so much. And then a woman gave birth to a big baby, and she died. Wendy was her name. She was very nice, very kind. She had a little boy named James. I didn't think a father could handle a baby on his own. I had a nervous breakdown after another miscarriage. I didn't want to live, and here you were, an accidental joy. The first time I saw you, so small and defenseless, I loved you like my own. I couldn't help myself. I took a sin on my soul. I made a deal with the doctor and the nurses. Deal? I paid money to keep quiet. I carried that weight on my heart every day for the rest of my life. I was afraid that someone would reveal this terrible secret. And most of all, I was afraid that if you found out, you'd hate me. But now I don't care. Daughter, if you're reading this letter, it means we're no longer alive. I'm sure you'll want to find your birth father, but I don't even know his name. I'm sorry to have put you through such heartache. You were the best daughter in the world. I love you with all my heart. Even if, as you read these lines, you're cursing me. Cindy was at a complete loss. She suddenly realized that James was her own brother. Because of his stupidity, they had almost committed a crime. She didn't know what to do about it. She couldn't go to Noah. She was afraid he wouldn't believe her. She didn't fully believe what she had read, so her mind was spinning with thoughts, I should check everything first. I should do the test, and then I would think about what to do next. James couldn't get over the fact that some girl had turned his father against him. He was waiting for the right opportunity to frame Cindy. Then he hoped his father would send her away. And that moment came. Cindy asked at the meeting, Noah, we have new customers, prepare the papers, and send no later than tomorrow. This is a very important contract for our firm. It opens up the possibility of long-term cooperation. Not a living soul, he turned to the others, except us. Must not know about the preparations for this contract. We will suffer major losses if the information gets to our competitor. All of Cindy's work was done late into the evening, fulfilling her boss's assignment. She wanted to make a draft today, and tomorrow she would double-check everything and send it to the customer. That's it, she said to herself. The project is ready. She could go home. She turned off the computer, carefully looked through everything so that no documents not intended for other people's eyes were left on the table, and left. She didn't notice a shadow flickering in the dark hallway. Tired Cindy hurried home, dreaming of collapsing on her bed and forgetting about work. When she opened her computer in the morning, she was horrified to find that someone had sent a draft of the contract to someone else's address. She could not understand how it could happen. While she was recovering, Evelyn called her and told her that Noah was in a hurry and was waiting for her. Noah went on the offensive from the start. Cindy, I had nothing to do with it. I don't know who could have gotten into my computer and sent the contract. Cindy. Noah's hard stare didn't bode well. There were only 4 interested people in this office yesterday. Hey, Mason and I are above suspicion. Here, we found those investors ourselves. That leaves you, James. James left early last night. His car broke down. He had it serviced. You stayed the longest. I checked with security. He paused for a moment and then stopped talking. Did you do it by accident? Wrong address or competitors paid themselves? Admit it honestly. I'll understand. We all make mistakes, but I don't like being lied to. I did not do it. Firmly, confidently answered the girl. I trusted you very much, Noah said, with regret in his voice. But I see that it was for nothing. You didn't have the courage to admit your mistake. I just don't understand why. It's hard for me to tell you this, but you're fired. I never want to see you again. Just forget my name, that's all. He turned his back to her, showing that the conversation was over with the reckoning come tomorrow. You're making a very big mistake, Noah. But I won't make excuses. It's the one at fault who makes excuses. And it wasn't my fault. Cindy stood for another minute, hoping he would change his mind. And then she walked out. She was packing her things when James came in. That little girl's got it. I warned you, don't make me angry. He sat down on the table and took out a picture of his parents from the box of Cindy's things. Ay, 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 what a stupid daughter you raised. Cindy snatched the photo and put it back. I guessed it was your handiwork. You know, I'm glad I'm leaving you, she said. Now I won't have to see your ugly face every day. James jumped up and swung at her. They stood and glared at each other for a few seconds. Are you going to hit me? I see this runs in the family. Does your cheek still hurt? Cindy asked calmly. She thought to herself, you're my brother. James lowered his hand. I don't beat the vanquished, or the little ones. You'll have to look for another trough now. What feeder? The girl looked at him perplexed. Well, you dreamed of jumping into bed with your father to ensure yourself for years to come a trouble-free existence. Imagine if you became my stepmother. He, Skobrev, laughed. A stepmother is younger than a stepson. James stepped close to her, ran his index finger down the shaft of her face, then down the back of Dawn's neck into her face, making a mess of Sasha's curls. The Orsha girl flung herself away from him. James, I said those words to Noah. I will repeat them to you. You are both very wrong, and you will soon realize it. Now I have to go. I don't want to be here even for a minute. Cindy left the office, leaving James at a complete loss. On the one hand, he was celebrating his victory. But on the other hand, his conscience was gnawing at him. In fact, he was not an evil man, but he did not tolerate rejection. The girl came home and collapsed into bed without strength. Resentment overwhelmed her. She cried bitterly. Mom, Dad, how bad I feel without you, she sobbed. How am I to live now, and what am I to do with the truth that has come out so suddenly? Unbeknownst to herself, Cindy fell asleep. Sleep didn't bring relief. She took her time at work, waiting for the results of the DNA test. Finally, she got the call. Are the tests ready? You can come in now. With an envelope in hand and a letter of resignation, Cindy entered Noah's office. Without raising his head, the man threw out some questions. Noah, it's very clear. I brought the letter of resignation and wanted to say goodbye. I said goodbye, looked at her. I have a lot to do. Leave the application with Lena. Goodbye, Noah. Just for a second, she had the sudden urge to tell him now. Overcoming it, Cindy left the application and the envelope with the secretary. Noah burst into Mason's office. I didn't understand why Cindy was coming from work instead of going to work. I fired her. Without taking his eyes off the desk, Noah calmly replied, What? Exclaimed a surprised Mason. Why? Because she leaked the contract for the last, very profitable deal to our competitors. And what? Should I be fired for that? Especially since the investors only want to work with us. So the competitors couldn't get the contract. And you're sure it's her fault? Who is? Not you and me? James has been in the service since lunchtime, and everything is locked up on her. I'm sorry, Noah said irritably. The order's already been signed. There's no reason for her to stay here. Yes, there is, Mason said quietly. She has a very good reason to stay. I don't know what you mean. She's your daughter? What? Noah jumped in. If this is a joke, it's a very wicked one. She can't be my daughter. I've been trying for years to find any proof that our girl is alive. I couldn't find any. And now you come and tell me that Cindy is my daughter. I've been meaning to say it for a long time, but it's never been the right time. Mason got nervous, started pacing around the office. I got her a job once. I thought it was weird. Remember when I asked you about her? I do. What's next? Hurried Noah. So, I asked Detective Kevin, nice guy. Mason, not without me. Speak quickly, the man interrupted him. I'm saying that he found out her whole background for me, and a curious fact of her biography had come to light. And Mason detailed everything the detective had learned. That doesn't tell us anything, Noah objected. There's not a shred of proof that she's my daughter. At that moment, James entered the office. He had overheard the conversation, whose daughter and who she was. He intervened in the conversation. The door opened again. Evelyn came in. Noah, I just stepped out for a minute. I came back, and there was an envelope for you. She put the envelope as Cindy had left in front of Noah. The man took out the documents and cried out, God, what an asshole I am. She really is my daughter. Whose daughter? Explain that to me, James asked again. Cindy is my daughter and your sister. Look at the DNA results. It says in black and white, 9% match. James was shocked by what he heard. Like a sister. I'm the idiot who almost raped my own sister, he thought in horror. That's why she fought me off like a tiger. He clutched his head. Dad, Uncle Mason. I have a confession to make. I'm the one who sent the contract to the competition. Why? Noah asked, puzzled. I wanted to set Cindy up. I thought you had a crush on her. I thought you had a crush on her. I was angry that she turned me down. She was smarter than you? Dad made a threatening remark. That's what Mason told them. Let's not waste time. We need an address. I know where she lives, said James. Let's go, Noah said. In the car. He tried to call the girl, but she turned off her phone. No one opened the apartment door. The nosy neighbor across the hall recognized James. She looked suspiciously at the three men. Why are you calling? She's not here. She left half an hour ago. Where to? The men asked in chorus. She won't tell me. I saw her leave with a suitcase. They were sitting in the car, not sure what to do. I've reconnected Kevin. He's a savvy detective who can track her down, Mason suggested. We don't even know who her friends are, Noah said sadly. I'll try to find out who she socialized with at the university, James informed her. In the evening, Noah sat at the table drinking cognac. You don't understand? I didn't even realize who she reminded me of, he told his son. I saw her cornflowers, her eyes, her hair. They are Mom's, you know? And I didn't recognize my daughter. Don't blame yourself. Dad, didn't you know she was still alive? You were looking for her, James reassured him. We'd never seen her before. And here's a 20-year-old girl. But I liked her right away. I didn't understand why I was attracted to her. I wanted to take care of her, protect her. And you're such an asshole. A father gave his son a slap on the wrist for making things up. I saw how much love you looked at her from your father's side. I didn't know. There's no forgiveness. I threw my daughter out and you framed your sister. They were silent for a while. Then they went to their rooms. Mason, no news yet. 2 days later, the detective reports she's gone to ground. She's only got one close friend, but Cindy hasn't told her anything at all. Not even about finding a good job being secretive. The girl is just used to relying only on herself. Mason remarked. Days went by. No one knew anything about Cindy. The search was fruitless. One night, James was hanging out with a friend at a club. James, there's someone I want you to meet. Charles, have you finally found the woman of your dreams? The young man grinned. You don't know what she's like. There's no one else like her in the world. And when you met her yesterday, knowing the windy character of his friend, laughed James. 3 weeks now, Charles proudly announced. What a number. And you still haven't said a word? Because she's not like anyone I've ever known before. I think the young man looked around and whispered, I'm getting married soon. James looked at his friend in amazement. Charles, I want to see this miracle of nature for which you are willing to give up your freedom. That's what I'm telling you. Tanya's drunk in Ka, but I'll introduce her tomorrow. You'll like her. But don't you dare. The young man waved his index finger in front of James's nose. If you steal her away from me, I'll be mortally offended. I might even challenge you to a duel. There's never been a woman born who'll fight us, Mustus. James said, She's not a woman. Charles was offended. She's the best woman in the world. All right, fine. Let's bring your beautiful stranger over to our house tomorrow at 7 o'clock. By the way, how did you meet her? It's an amazing story, really. The young man sat down comfortably, waving the bartender to pour more whiskey on the rocks.
3 weeks ago, I was coming back with my grandmother from the cemetery. It was some kind of Parents' Day. Keep it short, my friend asked James. I'll keep it short. So we're driving along, and there's this girl sitting at the bus stop. Next to her is a suitcase, a bathtub all over her.
We stopped. We asked her, what's up? She says she went to visit her parents at the cemetery. She couldn't catch the bus. She had nowhere to go because she didn't want to go home. My grandmother, a kind soul, offered to go to her place, saying, you'll look after me. She agreed. I delivered them to my grandmother's house in the best way, and I went on business myself. I didn't even get a good look at her then. The next day, I decided to visit my grandmother. This girl opened the door. I took one look at her and realized I was lost. You know, that's never happened to me before. Love at first sight. Yeah, you surprised me today. What's so special about her? She's good in bed, but this is even more surprising. A week or so later, I decided to hook up with her for fun. She opened me up so much. I'm still ashamed. She said she wouldn't do anything before the wedding. James listened to his friend's story and could not get rid of the feeling that somewhere he had already heard it. But his head didn't want to think, either because of the alcohol or the loud music. Decided to wait to meet a girl who managed to make Charles and a confirmed bachelor think about marriage. Papa walked James into his father's study. I invited him to the bathhouse by 7 o'clock tonight. You won't believe it. He's decided to get married. He wants us to meet the woman he's going to marry. He says he'll have to ask her if she has a girlfriend. Maybe I'll decide to get married, the young man joked. No time for guests. We've been looking for Cindy for 3 weeks now, and there's no sign of her. I'm afraid something might have happened to her. We've been checking hospitals and morgues. I'll say it again. I never thought I'd ever fulfill the promise I made to your mom.
To be honest, I already believed that the girl's crying that Mom heard was just the delirium of a dying man. So, every time I went to the grave, I apologized for not keeping my vow. I can't. Having just gained a daughter, to lose her again.
Noah looked wistfully at the picture of his wife that always stood on his desk. She looks so much like Wendy, sighed the father serenely. The table was already set when the bell rang. James went to greet the guests, opened the door, and was stunned. Cindy stood before him. The girl, too, was frozen in amazement. Lucky, neither of them could utter a word. Charles, without noticing anything. Out of happiness, said Cindy. Let's get acquainted. This is my friend James. I told you about him. Oh, you only kept silent. His name, the girl said, overcome with shock. Daddy, shouted James, keeping his eyes on Cindy. Daddy, don't you worry. Look who Charles has brought in. The father went out to the guests, on the way correcting his tie and fears, an invisible dusting of his jacket. When he saw the entrance, he also froze. In the first seconds, he was speechless. I did not understand, shifting his gaze from one to the other. Charles was surprised. You know each other? Yes, we do, replied James. That's my sister. Who? The young man exclaimed in amazement. And my daughter, Noah added. Cindy blushed and lowered her head in embarrassment.
She didn't expect to be welcomed into the family right away, without a long trial. Everyone stood there, hesitant to take the first step toward her. At last, James opened his arms and Zagreb in a rap. The girl whispered in his ear, I'm sorry.
I had no idea it would turn out like this. Hey, what are you guys studying? Charles got worried. Nothing. It's our family thing. Hup, James laughed. Hello, daughter, her father said, taking her by the shoulders. Welcome to the family. He pressed her gently, reverently. So they stood in silence. Each was thinking about his own thoughts. Let's go to the table, James called. I'm very hungry. And a toast to meeting, to getting to know each other, to family reunion. Noah kept his eyes on the girl, admiring her. Because I felt like you reminded me of someone. Every time I looked at you, I'd catch myself thinking that. And you and James look alike. Same cornflower eyes, blonde wavy hair. Both so handsome. Hey, is this like a Brazilian soap opera going on around here? I didn't know. You told your friend you had a sister, huh? I didn't know until recently. He laughed. Tell me. I'm interested to know, because I hope that now they will become part of your family too. All three of them looked at him questioningly. He stood up, coughing, and took a small box out of his pocket, and in it a gold ring. Hey, Noah, since it turns out that you are Cindy's father, I am officially asking you her hand in marriage. He looked questioningly from Noah to Cindy and back again. Both were silent. Charles didn't know what to do now. He snickered, mentally berating himself for not finding a better moment. Charles, Noah began. I don't know if Cindy will let me give her consent on her behalf, but I don't mind if you get married. I've known you a long time. Have you been friends with James since first grade? Daughter, he hesitated. I have yet to get to know you, but I'm sure you'll make a good wife. We should drink to that, James suggested. Why don't you say something? He turned to his newfound sister. You see, he can't find a place for you. I'm going to announce the verdict? No. Cindy didn't say a word. She was not ready for all these changes in her life. She had to realize she had a family now. And soon, she would have a husband. Charles was still standing with his outstretched hand, on which the box with the ring was lying opened. The girl silently accepted the gift. Everyone clapped. Well, the formalities are over. Fooling around, said James. Now it's time to tell the story of how, after 20 years, a phantom hope came true. I got a sister, and Dad got a daughter. They talked and couldn't agree. Yes, they were amazedly silent, only occasionally exclaiming. But you guys. At the end of the evening, Noah asked Cindy if you would like to stay with us tonight. Noah, began the girl and stopped, feeling the reproachful glances of her brother and father. I'm sorry, I'm not used to it yet. Yes, I understand. It takes time. I won't rush you. I think so too, she continued. There's no need to rush. I'll go back to my place. No arguments. The girl stopped the questions in Charles's eyes. It's better this way. I need to think things over. Are you going back to work? Asked James's father. He turned to his son. Cindy, I apologize for setting you up. James eyed his sister warily. I don't hold a grudge against you. She touched his arm reassuringly. If you hadn't fired me, I never would have met Charles. That's why I'm even glad things worked out the way they did. She laughed, and the others cheered. And now that everyone's apologized, questions answered. We should probably get going, Charles announced. Noah sat in the silence of the room and mentally talked to his wife. Christmas tree, I found our girl after all. Or rather, she found us. Now I can call myself a truly happy man. After all, today I found a daughter, and in her a part of you. He stroked the picture of his wife. It's been so long since you've been with us. I still miss you. But things will change now, he promised. And a son and a daughter close by. Cindy will marry soon, and perhaps James will settle down and meet his soulmate. We have good children, he said quietly and continued sadly. I believe you are watching us and rejoicing with us. 2 years passed. In the house rang the bell, Noah, and rushed to the door, spoke, opening, And who is it here to see me? He saw his daughter's shining eyes, hugged her, kissed her. Behind her, carefully holding the precious burden, Charles left. Hello, Papa. Here you are, grandson. Cindy joyfully greeted her father. Charles carefully handed him the children. 2 pairs of identical eyes looked at him. The happy grandfather kissed each granddaughter on her rosy cheek. The girls smiled with toothless mouths, filling Noah's heart with unspent love. Come through now, and James will drive up, he informed them. Cindy, see if there's anything else that needs to be put on the table. It's okay, Daddy. There's more than we can eat in a month. She laughed. Charles, open up, please,
said Noah, when the doorbell rang again. Here we are, heard in the hallway. James appeared next. He was holding his wife in one arm and his son in the other. Is everyone here? The father asked, looking around the family. He adjusted the portrait of his wife in the middle of the table and continued. Today is our mom's anniversary. I want to say that I am very happy because I have you. I'm really rich now. I have 4 children, 2 granddaughters, and a grandson. Pretty soon I'll be hearing the words, Grandpa, and I, an old man, do not need more. The young people laughed. Papa, what kind of an old man are you? Noah, we'll marry you. Don't doubt it. I read somewhere that grandparents get a second wind with the appearance of grandchildren. Noah, you and your grandchildren will have to finish school again. Noah didn't listen to what the kids were telling him. He looked from one to the other and admired them all at once and each one separately. His soul rejoiced. All these years he had lived, keeping hope, fragile as the autumn on ice on the river. It was not in vain that he had kept his vow to find his daughter. And from the photograph, the ever-young Wendy looked at him approvingly